Hi, people. Hi, everyone present in this world. Everyone who desires the knowledge, the one who desires the wisdom, even much more than the knowledge, and the people who crave that inner feeling of unfulfillment and want it to somehow get fulfilled, get manifested, get solved in some way or the other. So, today's topic is death. It's a very interesting topic. I think the amount of discourse that has happened, whether it's in India, whether it's in Western cultures, even in the era that I was born in, there were podcasts, there were people talking about it, there were people thinking about it, putting their viewpoints about how life ends. There's a very famous book which is called Garun Puran in Hindu literature or scriptures, basically, not literature. It's part of Hindu scriptures and subcategorized into a category of Puranas. But I haven't read it. I have known a bit because I was born by a coincidence in a Hindu family. So I know it by smritis only, as most of the Hindus do know about. Let's leave that aside. Let's not talk about intellectualization of a process which is called death. This topic is very serious and at the same time very funny too. But let me set a base for it. Let me set a premise to all this, precursor to the very talk I want to do with you people and want to communicate my perspective. So, what I want to tell you is my precursor to this is a philosophical, let's not say that word philosophical, a way of putting things in a literature. Let's go back to millions of years from this time period. Millions of years ago, somewhere around 2 lakh years ago, the Homo sapiens evolved. 70,000 years ago, there was a cognitive revolution. 10,000 years ago, there was agricultural revolution, and then we know the history of past 5,000 years, literature, philosophy, science, Eastern mysticism, and all that. But let's go to a person. Let's go to that species. Not even a person, because person is very society based definition of a species based animal. But let's go to that species based animal who is naive, who has just been born in the world, and pre-assumption to this is that there is no previous conditioning in any sense to that human, and he, for the first time, is with his partner, whether it's female or male, and I'm assuming this character to be a male, and the partner is female or a male, and then he suddenly sees that they are sitting on a tree, and the other partner falls from the tree, and tree is long, and they have gone there to save themselves from some kind of threat, existential threat, and by a chance that partner falls down and this person also falls down, but he have had some minor injuries. His leg is broken maybe, or some injury in hand, but he sees the other person, the partner, and he sees that he is not moving at all. Also, his eyeballs are stagnant. Then he gets shocked. Let's don't we should not forget that there is a pre-assumption that there is no conditioning of death to him. And he sees that eyeballs are not moving, he sees that the person is not moving, the partner is not moving. So now he goes a bit deeper into the fact. He checks the breathing, he checks the movement of the body, nothing there. And then he gets shocked because it's a partner. There is an emotional, evolutionary based emotional connection that he feels within his body to that partner. That feeling of being subtracted or get reducted in some sense of the emotional heart. The feeling of losing someone loved. And then he realizes that this is a state where a person can go due to certain things. And over centuries and thousands of years, these things developed, these things evolutioned with every death we saw, with different death causing scenarios, with different people. And all those experiences are somehow encoded in our DNAs. There is no scientific backing to that. But definitely there is backing that everything is hereditarily, evolutionarily forwarded in the genes of the people that are being reproduced. So those insecurities, those questions, those kind of emotions would also, by that logic, be transferred through DNAs. So the experience of this kind of state of death is being moved on over several thousands of DNA copies, several thousands of people, and every person has somehow experienced the death of their loved ones or the people who were near to them, or even the people they didn't even know, but they just went as a society's inauguration. I won't say inauguration, a society's ritual. So I want to put this point very dramatically that for that one person that I assumed to be naive and doesn't know anything, this person seems to have gone. It's finished. Its body is very different. And now I just don't want to logically question it, because the people who question death logically always get lost in the perpetual meaning of it. And they are never heartful enough to understand the fact that it is not something which could be understood by logic, or it would have been rationalized many years before them. The whole point is, some things are so difficult to express and much easier to feel that when you try to express, you make it even worse to be understand or to be communicate communicatable or understandable to other people. So death is not something to be logically looked. Let's think about, and not think about, open your hearts and emotionally feel what that guy sitting next to her women or her partner thinks about. He's a person of white lives and forests, and there is every time life threat to him. But that very incident would have definitely stopped his heartbeat for a moment, would have definitely stopped his thought process for a moment, would have definitely stumbled him in the journey of life. And that person resides in every one of us, irrespective of the gender. That very person is still in our DNAs, asking for the same answers. People have come and people have gone, stating that death is the starting of something new. As Egyptians have believed that death is the beginning of a new life, and after death, again, that person comes. And then the whole concept of mummification and pharaoh Pharaoh, Phraoh, whatever the pronunciation is, Pharaoh's reawakening, and all those Tutankhamun and all those stories that we have listened on Discovery channels. And then people of Eastern mystic experiences, which I have much more connection to because I was born in India. A little bit digression from the topic, but what I have as my ethnic background is that I was not a person, I am of the genome or of that hereditary way, which was a descendant from Indus Valley Saraswati civilization, because in my surname the word Saraswat comes. So there are two possibilities of my ethnic background which totally resonates with the actual Indian subcontinent genome. First one is about Indus Saraswati civilization and the Saraswat Brahmins who used to stay on the banks of Saraswati river, which has disappeared now, and it was present in the times of Indus Valley Saraswati civilization existence. Or the other logic that comes out is of even more deep importance, and I consider myself to be of that part, though very different from that very lineage. The lineage of Adi Shankaracharyas, the lineage of Adi Shankaracharyas mutt that were built over four different places in India, and Shankaracharya had a family and that lineage of people called Saraswat. Because Saraswat comes from a root word of Sanskrit which is Shashwat, and many teachers of mine have called me unknowingly that word Sashwat. Sashwat means the eternal that exists forever. Sashwat, Sanatan, these are the two synonym words. So that Sashwat word is very self indicatory or denoting to the philosophy of Advait Vedanta or Adi Shankaracharya's philosophy of eternal existing Brahman. So, Brahman, right? In Hindi, we pronounce it as Brahma, not Brahma, it's Brahma. That eternal existing Aham Brahmasmi, that very eternal thing that always exists as a conscious part. That's a philosophical side of Adi Shankaracharya's. Let's come back to the topic of death. I gave this a little bit of context to just establish that I could be very much biased, and I try not to be, but I could be very much biased in the believing of things about death on Eastern mystics and people who have received some experience. And that is why I could easily counter Western ones because I don't know them. But it's a bit difficult for me to counter Eastern ones because I've seen their faces, I've read those people, and it's very difficult for me not to question them but to challenge their subjective experience, not their logics. I can totally digress and reject from the very Garun Puran because it's not reliable for me. But the people's faces are reliable enough that their subjective experience could be worthy to be heard. Apart from that, it's their reaching, it's not my reaching. So, my understanding is something which would matter to me. That is the reason I'm not at all trying to be any way justifiable about death by some other guy or by some other Mahapurush. Coming back to the topic of death, that person resonates within each of us. No one has properly answered, or even if someone's queries have been answered, that person was never able to communicate the real meaning of death to any one of us. So we literally have that person resonating and ringing our bells in our heads that you don't know death. And death makes everything so pessimistic, everything so nihilistic. That is the reason these philosophies were born after industrialization and capitalization, because in the starting, people of West were living in slums and they didn't have enough money. But as industrialization happened, many other ideologies happened, After a certain point of time, people were rich enough, or I won't say that word, wealthy enough for their survival, for their subsistence. And once one has a full stomach, then he starts questioning. And then these ideas of absurdism from Albert Camus, Franz Kafka, nihilism, and all these philosophies come out because no one really understands death. And that's a very genuine ask of those philosophers or of those people because they don't really know and they're questioning, and I respect that. And I also wonder about death. I don't know the answer. I'm not here to answer. I'm here to, by the literature, follow the route. How can we really go deep into this? So, I have a subjective experience that I wanted to share here today. I was dreaming yesterday. It was a time period of 10 p.m. to 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Date was 17th of August, and I was asleep and I started dreaming. And in my dream, I was seeing that I have hanged myself with my two friends because of certain family matters. Family was obsessing on us about careers and all that. That was the whole premise to that incident. But the moment I was hanged, in that experience, I felt suffocated, sabotaged by my own personality. And suddenly, my mind activated. And in Hindi, we say man, which is somewhere translatable to mind. And it said the very same thing that I am going to say here. It would take a little more words, but the feeling was very subjective to me. It said, you don't know life. You haven't experienced life enough. Don't die. There was a point before this, few seconds before this, even not few seconds, few paraseconds before this happening, I had a mindset, okay, let's die. Let's see what happens. But then I experienced within some milliseconds that you haven't experienced world enough and that you should not die. So I throw away my veil and I throw away my rope that was hanging me and I run away with that feeling, leaving my two friends away. After some time, I discovered, because in dreams there is no timeline, things happen. This was one of the discovery that I made in my subjective experience, that dreams never have a timeline. Something has happened before and then its action is happening afterwards. So in a way, I have discovered that something which should be in the timeline of our understanding of this world should be happening after the cause of this thing, but the effect is before the cause. So basically, the cause effect is totally broken in the world of swapna, as we say in Hindi, or dreams. So the interpretation of dreams by Sigmund Freud must be held accountable, must be held legitimate to certain extents. We don't really understand dreams enough. So coming back to that, I discover later that my friends also got away, and I don't know their emotions, but my emotions were subjectively very, I can't say it in a word, but the most resonating word in English is sad. Let me try to speak it in Hindi if people don't get agitated by that. Bhavuk dukh was my state of emotional perceivance at that moment. I was at that stage. And then I woke up, and then I really felt bad. I really felt like, what's the meaning of life? And sometimes there are two feelings for this very same question. One is the feeling of mind, which is philosophical, which is just about a perpetual conundrum that you fall into, which is totally useless because that problem cannot be solved. That problem can never be solved through intellectual jargon. I have done it enough, and I know that you can never solve the problem of life by the intellectual jargon. That is the reason I have started leaning on those spiritualists and mystics, because you never know what might be holding behind the veils of great eternity. Let's see. But overall, the experience was so dramatic, so saddening to me, that I was not able to speak for around 10 to 20 minutes, because it goes on playing in your mind. The emotional attachment to the dreams is very great. You see, emotional, real emotionality in today's era, when this much internet and all that is, has somehow decreased in this perpetual world we are living in. Not perpetual, basically this conscious world we are living in this world, due to exposure, due to internet, due to screens, due to this, due to that, due to not due to enough sources of dopamines, somehow the possibility of immense surge in the emotions has gone away. And so in dreams, the surge of emotions, like dopamine spikes of emotions, is very vivid, it's very interesting, and it's very beautiful to experience. In today's world, emotions have gone much above the baseline, just like dopamine's system of people, and that's why they never experience beautifully those emotional spikes, those hardworking anticipations, dopamine spikes. They don't experience it, and that kind of exposure is something I would talk about soon. But overall, if I want to conclude about death, it's a mystery, even to me today. And the people who are dead were never able to answer that mystery. In the conclusive line, I want to tell you that people are dead and have never answered what is beyond death. And if there is, what it is, or if it is not, then what is? Basically, you can't intellectualize this question. Physically, if you see, it's nothing but by the perspective and the lens of science, removing consciousness at all, that there is a genome, a gene copy was born and it died due to certain circumstances in the environment, another gene copy would produce. This is the very physical aspect of seeing. But again, referring to my previous video, this is a categorization from the lens of a scientist, but world is not that easy. It's much more complicated than our understandings. So be a bit more open to the possibilities of things we don't even know. If we see consciously what happens after death, thousands of things could be explored, but these are all things explored by the mind. These are not some extraterrestrial or metaphysical realities manifesting into our minds. So it's not much reliable, because at the end it's manifesting on the physical grounds. Some metaphysical thing manifesting on physical grounds make big questions about it. That should not be possible in the logic and rationalities world. And I think this is a question of experiencing. That's where I would conclude that a person would only be able to explore death when he's dead. The one who has died knows the death. Hari Om Tat Sat. आज के लिए बस इतना ही। धन्यवाद।